Congratulations, you got the consult. Now what do you do, right? Besides sweat and, get all anxious. For those of you that do in-person consultations today, that's what we're talking about, specifically how to prepare for them. And for people that are like me, I generally don't do consultations right on the spot unless it's something that I already know, it's going to be very easy, that I've maybe already worked with these clients before and now I'm just doing something a little different. But for many of us, we get nervous about that. And I was part of that tribe as well. So here I want to kind of give you 3 guidelines, 3 simple steps that you can do to prepare for the consultation in order for you to secure that booking, okay? Because that's the main goal, right? We want to make sure those people don't walk away and not book with us. So if you don't know me by now, my name is Erin Cook. I help travel experts simplify and systematize their businesses so they can make more profit in less time. And that's what we're going to do today, is we're going to try to figure out how to do this in a systemized manner so that you don't have to start from scratch every time you get a face-to-face consult. So the very first thing I want you to think about before we go into the steps on how to prepare is why you're at the consultation. Now, obviously, like I said, it's to secure the booking, but I want you to remember 3 key points, okay? This is your chance, number 1, to build that know, like, and trust and really solidify it. Because remember, the know, the like, and the trust is what's going to get them to buy, okay? They're not going to just want to throw thousands of dollars at a stranger. They really want to know where they're investing their money, and travel is a big expense. And it's not something we just, do on the spot. So we have to build that know, like, and trust, and what better way to do that than in person, or at the very least, if you're not nearby, for a local consultation, maybe a Skype call, which is what I love to do, or a FaceTime call. Now, this can also be applied to over the phone consultations. I know a lot of people do that. But I just want to encourage you to just stop and think that if you're able to meet with a client, for me, I will probably close at least 99% of them. I can only remember one person not booking their destination wedding, and that was because they didn't do a destination wedding at the end. Okay, so when I meet people face to face, especially if you're brand new and you really haven't had a lot of experience with consultations, meeting people face to face kind of gives you that edge and speeds up that know, like, and trust process. So think about that. The other thing I want you to keep in mind at the consultation itself and why we're preparing is that people buy on emotion. Okay, your purpose when you go there is to get them excited, because that's when they're going to buy. They're not going to, you don't want them to, have a long time to decide whether or not they're going to do this with you, because the longer it goes, the more they think about logic, okay? So when you can get them excited, that's when they're going to tend to purchase from you or decide to go ahead with that booking. And then the third thing is, this is our chance to really understand our client in 2 different ways, which is really key. So I hope you're writing these things down. We want to understand, number 1, how they want to be treated. Now, we always think about treating people the way we want to, but when it comes to sales, you have to think about the way they want to be treated. Really quickly, if you're kind of thinking like, what do you mean? It's that it goes back to that personality training that I did a few weeks ago. And if you missed it, no problem. But basically, it is when somebody is looking specifically to solve a problem, they have a certain personality. And you've met people with different personalities, and you say, we just don't mesh because we're two different types of people, right? You've heard that before. So for example, let's say a bull. We call them bulls in the Bolt training system, which we did this personality training a while back. These bulls are very set on getting status from their trip. They're very short, to the point. They don't want fluff. They don't want, to be all cutesy. They just want to know the facts and what's the next step to get me closer to being in that elite status, okay? So that's what you need to figure out from your client, is their personality, so that when you're interacting with them, you're able to serve their needs in the way they want them to be, okay? So we always have to adjust our sales process and our approach based on the personality of the client. And then obviously we need to understand how to help them in the travel sense, okay? And this is really your key to digging in to figure out how to do that, because getting an email with what the specific things are that people want for their wish list for travel is very different than talking to them about it. So for those who have not, haven't been in the travel business long, I really encourage you to think about doing at least, very minimum, a phone consultation versus just emailing back and forth. You're going to learn a lot more about your client. So with that being said, okay, that was a really long preview into why these consultations are so important, but these are the things that we have to keep in mind, okay? So the very first thing I do to prepare, all right, get your papers out, is I pre-qualify the client. So I kind of just talked about this, but when somebody calls and says, I'm looking at a honeymoon or destination wedding or whatever, I really want to get a feel for exactly what they're thinking at the time. Now, they may not have a good sense of what they're looking for. They may just know some basics, and that's okay. You want to know where they stand. And the biggest thing that I do when I pre-qualify people, not besides, saying, where do you want to go, what dates and things like that, I really want to hone in on what problems are they having planning it themselves, because that's going to be your ticket in that consultation to shine. Okay, so if you can figure out a way where they say, I'm having this problem, you can really hone in on that problem before you go and prepare to figure out a way to convey the way that you're going to solve that for them in the consultation. Does that make sense? That's going to be the highlight of what you're going to convey from you. Now remember, this is all about the person. When you're meeting at the consult, you really want to listen to them and you want them to be the one telling you everything. But your goal is to hone in on that piece, that missing piece, that gap that you can fill in for them. And that's how you're going to secure the booking. Okay, so pre-qualify them with your regular questions, but really hone in on what it is, the problem they're looking to solve by having a travel agent help them. Okay, so that's the first thing, pre-qualifying. That also lets you, let's say somebody calls you and says, I want to book a trip to Europe, and we're thinking maybe Italy or Spain. Now, if that's not your niche, you're going to be able to do some prep work on that as well, okay? That's part of this pre-qualification process, is knowing, what trip they're looking at. And if you're not an expert in those fields, it's going to give you time to prepare as well. That's why pre-qualifying is so important. It doesn't have to be this, big list of things, but just really hone in on what you need to do to prepare better so that you can build that know, like, and trust. Hope that makes sense. Okay, number 2 is, we kind of talked about this before, is mirroring your client's personality, okay? So remember that people buy on emotion, all right? So we want them to have a positive experience with us leading up to that consultation, because remember, sometimes, especially if they want to meet in person, it might be a few days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. You have to keep them excited, and that means you're going to have to touch base with them and just say, hey, was just thinking about you. Maybe if they're booking a trip to Europe, you could say, came across this article, isn't it cool? I can't wait to talk about it with you. Very short, sweet, to the point, whatever. So it doesn't take a lot of time. But think about this. If somebody writes you a letter, I say an email, you've gotten them, they're like paragraphs long talking about their trip, you're going to want to write back with more than just, a 2-sentence reply, because you're going to want to mirror their personality. Okay. And again, when you get to the consultation, you'll be able to do this as well and learn a little bit more about that style, what works for them. But before you get there, in order to prep, you're going to have to mirror them to keep that enthusiasm going. So if they're writing you, a 2-sentence paragraph and you write them 4 paragraphs in return, they're not going to go through it, okay? And right off the bat, you're going to kind of be on different pages. So you really want to reflect whatever they're doing and keep the enthusiasm going. That's how you're going to prepare for a successful consultation, okay? So number 1 is the pre-qualification. Number 2 is mirror their personality with enthusiasm. And then number 3, this is key, okay? I'm hoping nobody's listening. None of my clients are listening. I check them out on social media, okay? And here's why. Science, if you look at a lot of different studies, people make connections with those that they have things in common with already. Okay, so when people meet you and you maybe have a friend in common, or you've done something, let's say somebody got married at the same place you did, and you can make that connection with them, all of a sudden the trust is a little bit higher, right? Have you found that, where you just have something, or somebody, you go on vacation and somebody's from almost the same place that you are, you've got an instant connection. So that's why I say I stalk people on social media, but I check them out. Now, you're not going to tell them that you're checking them out on social media, but what you want to do is find a common ground if possible, or if you see they like horses or something, maybe in your conversation you can say something about horseback riding, and you like horseback riding too, and maybe that can be your common ground. It doesn't have to be anything crazy like, oh, you and I have mutual friends, but you're going to get an idea of that person's personality. You're going to get an idea of what they look like, especially if you haven't met yet. You know, that's part of the stress of going to an in-person consultation is, how am I going to recognize this person? Or they're going to totally not look like what they sound. You've been there, right? If you've ever met anybody before that you haven't seen a picture of. So that's going to alleviate the stress for you. And when you are less stressed, it's going to be an easier sale. Okay, so again, pre-qualify your clients. You're going to want to mirror them with your communications prior to that and convey enthusiasm. And then go ahead and check them out on social media and find a common ground so that it's easier for them to bond with you. Okay, so those are 3 out-of-the-box things that you can do to make your consultation successful. If you still need help growing your travel business and you're not quite sure where to start, you want to avoid the pitfalls that a lot of us have gone through, especially me, you're going to want to take my free training. Go to Travel Agent Jumpstart, and it's the 10 ways to kill your business and then how to revive it immediately. Okay, it's the 10 biggest mistakes that travel agents make when trying to grow their business. So it's a little free training for you. Go ahead to travelagentjumpstart.com and you will be thriving in no time.